Let me set the stage. It's the year 2003 and Too Fast, Too Furious had just wrapped up principal production. And the cars had been shipped back to California and they were sitting in a warehouse doing nothing. The next thing I heard that they were gonna do something to do promotion for the movie, and they didn't really know what they were gonna do. Because Vin Diesel was not gonna be in the movie, they're gonna have to spend more money to hype this movie up. How are we gonna get an audience in here? And they came up with something genius. We'll get into this right after this message from today's sponsor, Aura. Have you ever Googled your name? If you have, you were probably shocked to see some of your personal information floating around for the whole world to see. Every once in a while, I Google myself just for fun. I'm always surprised what kind of things are floating around the internet. It's just creepy that these companies have this information on me. So this is what they do. These data brokers are making money hand over fist by selling your info to robocallers, spammers, and in some cases, much worse. This is why I'm talking about today's sponsor, Aura. Aura can identify data brokers who are exposing your information and then submit opt-out requests on your behalf. Brokers are legally required to remove your info if you ask them to, but they make it super hard to do that. So let Aura handle all of it for you. Now you can get off of all of those lists. You can try Aura free for 2 weeks using my link here below, aura.com/Craig. Aura does so much more to protect you and your family from online threats that you can't even see. It's really easy to set up, so you don't have to bother downloading several different apps just to get things like parental controls, antivirus, VPN, password management, identity theft, insurance, and even more. You get everything at one affordable price. So let Aura do all the hard work of keeping you safe online so you can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. Like I said, in 2003, Universal needed a way to start warming up audiences for the upcoming release of the new movie called Too Fast, Too Furious. And they were kicking around a lot of ideas. By this time though, the first movie had already been released on VHS and on DVD. And so Universal wondered if another VHS or DVD might provide some more hype. So they decided to make a special release of a DVD. It was called the Fast and Furious Tricked Out DVD. The new DVD release included my segment where I was with that Playboy girl joining me in a segment where we build a Mitsubishi Evo. That was one of the features on this DVD. And the other one is this thing I'm going to talk about. It's called the turbocharged Prelude to Too Fast, Too Furious. So Universal basically had two choices. They could spend another $10 or $20 million on advertising, or they can do something cheaper and hopefully make some more money. So what do? They came up with an idea to do this Prelude, a lead-in to Too Fast, Too Furious, explaining how Brian goes from California over to Miami. And so they hired a director, Philip Atwell, and Gary Scott Thompson, who's a screenwriter for Fast and Furious movies, to put this thing together. So they committed to produce this special edition DVD, and they prayed that it was going to help the movie and hopefully sell a bunch of those DVDs and make more money. And that's what they did. How did they put it together? The timing was pretty good by accidentally, actually. The main plot line, again, was to explain how Brian winds up in Miami. The script that he wrote was the most realistic story in the whole franchise, if you're asking me. The plot was Brian, now running from the law, he has to change his appearance and put some space between himself and Los Angeles. Since the Supra was now in hands of Dom, Brian needs to get into the car. So he winds up in a red car that appeared to be a Mitsubishi 3000 at first glance, but actually the car was a 1991 Dodge Stealth. This car was rented from a private guy named Ben, and on the Mitsubishi forums, he used the name of Dr. Scrub. Despite the fact that the car was naturally aspirated, meaning no turbocharger, no supercharger, the car looked fast to most audience, even if you didn't know any better. The car was mostly all show, but it sure looked the part. The car had an Arabuni Shogun, a GTR wing, shaved door handles, tantrum wheels. The interior was mostly cosmetic. Engine mods were mostly bolt-ons like most cars of that era. But like I said, it looked really good on camera and people looked at it and said, wow. Interestingly though, most audiences only focused on the red Dodge Stealth because the red car was in the foreground. It was hard to see the other car, but I think it should have been reversed. The other car was a very well-known tuner car of the time. It was owned by Daniel Song. Most people referred to this car as the Bomex Honda Civic. This car was no joke, man. Daniel's car got cast at one of my movie car casting calls in Santa Monica. Because Daniel didn't get picked for Too Fast and Furious, he thought he had no chance of getting in the movie. But after Too Fast and Furious was wrapped up, we came back to California, and then we was doing the Prelude, and they called him up and said, hey, we want your car. And so he was flabbergasted. His car was a trophy winner at many car shows. This car was also featured in several magazines, including Super Street, if I'm correct. Even One Look will reveal the exterior mods, including things like a full Bomex kit, custom R2 wide body fender flares, shaved side moldings, Corvus rear wing, APR GT3, carbon fiber mirrors, fiber images, carbon fiber hood, Civic Type R headlights, and other things. Under the hood, a Vortec supercharger, an air to water cooler, and supporting mods, exhaust, and all that kind of stuff. The wheels were custom built by Racing Heart, CR 3-piece wheels, 19 by 10 front and rear. 19 by 10 on the front and the rear. When I saw that, I was like, oh my God, that's kind of cool, man. Good on him. The car really was a nice car, man. I walked around in that car a couple times, and it was a good looking car. In the interior of the car had a monkey bars, roll cage, and Recaro reclining seats, and all the kind of audio setup, nice gauges. It wasn't tacky. Both cars look good on camera for sure, but Brian wins his first race in his Dodge Stealth, and that was the end of that. There was the part, the cars parted, and we would never see it again. So the drag race between the Stealth and the Civic was filmed in Sun Valley, which is very close to Universal Studios Hollywood. Daniel had this to say. I talked to him on the phone 2 days ago. He goes, the director wanted the Civic to do a burnout. In order to do this, they had to put sandbags in front of the rear tires, and then the stuntman would rev the engine, right? And then he would drop the clutch and to get the front of the tire spin and all that kind of stuff. After a few of those tries, they shortly smoked the clutch. Daniel called me to help him to get reimbursement for the damage after the production wound up. I made a couple of phone calls, and I never know what happened after that, but he told me yesterday that he did get paid. And so Brian won his race against the feisty Honda. Shortly after that, we see that the cops have found the red Mitsubishi in a motel parking lot. Brian decides he needs to put even more distance between him and Los Angeles. So what does he do? He hitches a ride to a roadside used car dealer, which was filmed in Palmdale, California, where he discovers an R34 GTR just sitting in the back lot. Like that ever happened. There'd probably be $100,000 today taken to it. You gotta remember, in the Fast and Furious movies, there's no reality. It's not a documentary. So if you noticed that when he was doing the hitchhiking with this girl, there was this Eclipse Spider. Remember that there was an Eclipse Spider in Too Fast, Too Furious? That's not a coincidence. What happened is, those cars would ship back to Ted Moser's picture car warehouse in Los Angeles, California, and they were sitting in a warehouse. They had nothing to do with those cars, but they need a car for the girl, and they need a car for Paul Walker for this segment. So what they did, they cover up the paint jobs that they had in Miami with the tinted matte spray over the paint job. The spray was designed to absorb harsh lighting, whether from studio floodlights or for bright sun. And before you ask, that device in front of the intercooler in the R34 was a nitrous spray bar. A nitrous spray bar sprays nitrous onto the intercooler in order to chill the boosted air from the turbos, for those who don't know. Now driving a Nissan GTR, Brian looks for street races anywhere he can find them as he makes his way to Miami. At the end of the feature video, Brian rolls into Miami. In fact, he was really still in California, but the producers made it look like Miami, but it definitely wasn't Miami. So what happened to these cars? Well, the Dodge Stealth sort of disappeared. I learned years later that the car went to the junkyard. Daniel's Civic got sold to a buyer in Norway. The new owner installed a B18C short block and did a full build of the car with a big turbo and made 700 horsepower with E85. To my knowledge, that car is still in Norway. And this is the common outcome with these cars. A lot of these cars that were in the scene, or a couple of scenes, all these background cars on the first movie, in Hawthorne, all those cars are gone. Those cars were sold 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 times, stolen, stripped, crashed. So every time somebody DMs me, whatever happened to that car in the background in the corner with the girl with the big boobs over there? Whatever happened to that car? I don't know. Between the first two movies, more than 1,500 cars on set. Not at the same time, but on and off the set, 1,500 cars. A lot of those extra cars that came in for one day, they never checked in with us, so they didn't give us their license plates, they didn't give us any spec sheets, not their names, anything. We know they come on set, they park the car, they stay on set for a couple of hours, they have some lunch, and then at the end of the day, they come back to the tent and they get their check and they drive away, and that's it. So we can't keep track of all those cars. But it was fun to find the final disposition of these two cars. I hope you liked this video. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.